Hello, it's Philippa Billette from the Ending Body Burnout Show. I'm excited to bring a very special guest onto our podcast today, Monique Catteral. We're going to be talking all things breath and breathwork and how to regulate your nervous system by tapping into your own inner medicine, which is our breath. I'm so excited. So a bit about Mon. So Mon is a well-being coach specialising in relaxation and stress management with easy to apply tools using the mind, body and breath. She takes a holistic approach, inspiring prevention over cure, living over existing, and human beings over human doings. Mon runs relaxation and breathwork programs, exam preps in schools, youth yoga, and teaches mindful Pilates and is an Access Bars practitioner. Mon is accredited in health coaching, breath coaching, youth yoga, Pilates, meditation, mindfulness, and Access Bars therapy. She's a bit of an all-rounder. And without further ado, we will jump into the conversation now.
Hello and welcome to the Ending Body Burnout Show. We're your hosts, Chris and Philly, co-founders of multi-award-winning functional medicine practice, serving busy people with energy, mood, and gut issues.
While busyness, overworking, addictive doing, and perfectionism might be the norm, it's not normal, and it's a major contributor to health issues.
Our goal with this show is to give you a holistic root cause approach to healing your body so that you don't have to continue doctor or diet hopping or popping a gazillion supplements hoping something might stick.
So get ready to heal your body, get your spark back, deeply connect with yourself, and step into the life of your dreams. Let's dive in.
Hello, Mon. We are so excited.
Hello. How are you?
Good. So excited to have you on the podcast. We've been like social stalkers of each other, I think, for a while now, and we've actually never spoken in person. So it's exciting.
I know. Like I'm fangirling right now.
Little fan crush. Woo. All right. Shall we just dive straight in?
Yes, let's do it.
Okay, awesome. So we find that most healers, practitioners, this is my case anyway, often come into this profession of natural medicine, holistic healing because of our own body burnout experiences. I just love to know, like, let's unpack your story first because you have a pretty fascinating story that I think a lot of people can learn from.
Yeah, sure. Yes, I've experienced body burnout majorly a couple of times in my life. And the first one I'll keep pretty private, but probably about 2016, my son was 17 at the time and he nearly died from septicemia. And it was quite a horrific journey. It was quite stressful trying to get him diagnosed. Mama's instincts kick in and you know when your child is unwell, especially when they're tough. You know, especially when they watch blood being drawn or watch stitches going to their legs, you know, like, and I knew something was wrong and it was very, very hard to get anyone to listen, to take us seriously. We kept getting dismissed. So yeah, that led to the stress of all that, which ended up being a 16-month-long journey.
Wow.
Yeah, I ended up, of course, with PTSD, adrenal fatigue, and just, completely burnt out, completely lost myself.
Yeah.
He's okay now. He's okay now, by the way.
Did he get better and then you got better, or he got better and then your burnout from the body point of view is just like, why am I not bouncing back even though I'm now not in that fear-based situation?
No, I would say his journey was 16 months before he was actually cleared by the head of infectious disease. And during that 16 months, he was on 2,000 milligrams of antibiotics a day, keeping him alive. And so during that whole time I was unwell and I was just a zombie running on autopilot. So it probably wasn't until he started to get better and got cleared that I started to get better, because I as mums, we put ourselves last.
Mm.
And especially when you have a sick child, it's like you have no awareness. You're just running on autopilot. And of course, he was coming first, the situation, the appointments, the checkups, and during that 16 months, he had no immune system.
Mm.
So I was told that a common cold could kill him because it could turn into ammonia. And
Wow.
so I was in a heightened state for 16 months. If he had a sniff, I was like, are you okay? Oh my God, are you okay? And it got to the point where I even had my GP on speed dial because of the stress. And it was like, well, if he gets this, he has to go straight to ER. If he gets this, he has to go straight to ER. And it was, so it wasn't probably until all that, till he was actually cleared, that I started to, I guess I had like a breakdown, like a mini breakdown.
Yeah. Which makes sense too, because if you're in that, if you're in the environment where there's chronic stress, your adrenal glands and your neurotransmitters would have been going nuts. It's actually really hard to heal in that situation.
It's crazy to look back, and it makes me realize how amazing the human body is. That we can actually semi-function and sustain for quite a long period of time before we do crash. It's like we live off adrenaline.
Yeah. Well, basically that's what happens. And then I get the lab test and it's like, you have no adrenaline left.
Yeah.
Well, people do, but it's like, this is below detectable limits.
And you fake it. Like, I did become very withdrawn. I became very antisocial. I remember my friends were trying to catch up with me and I'd be like, yeah. In my mind, I had no intention of going. And on the day, I would bail last minute with an excuse, like a headache, or I'm not well, or, and then they started to realize, they're like, you're not right. Like, we're worried about you.
Yeah.
And some people don't even know what I went through, because I'm not one to post it all over socials, and it wasn't my journey, it was my son's journey, and he's quite private. And he still to this day doesn't really like talking about it. So I think he can't remember a lot of it.
Yeah. How old was he?
He was 17 at the time.
17. Okay. Yeah. Wow. That's super interesting that he doesn't remember it. He probably has his own internal system. It's just like, that is a period of your life that I don't want to have in the forefront of my memory, because it was traumatizing. Like, it's trauma.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And for a long time, he, because we were seeing so many different people, there was head of infectious disease, there was orthopedics, because it was growing inside his hip joint and down his bone. So we had to have x-rays because it was eating away at his bones, the abscesses. And then there were constant blood monitoring. There was physio appointments because he lost 75% of his strength in that hip and leg area. So all these appointments, and he would have anxiety about driving past the hospital. And that was a worry for me too, because he was holding back telling me what was really going on, because he didn't want to have to go back to hospital.
Yeah, wow, that's crazy.
So it was all stress related.
Yeah, absolutely. So you mentioned too burnout, adrenal fatigue, like it sounds like depression as well, if you were just like disconnected from the world. Did you have any other physical symptoms, or was it more just like the mental shutdown?
It was more mental. I think I was just a zombie, like existing, not living. And I do remember I lacked motivation. I wasn't exercising, I wasn't socializing, but physically I was crying all the time. And I had clients coming to me. I've been a hairdresser 36 years and I still do that a couple of days a week. And I would be in the toilet sobbing in between clients, and I'd be in there going, stop, just stop, and a client would walk in and I'd lie. They'd go, are you all right? And I'd go, oh, I just had one of those coughing fits, where your eyes water. And then I'd have to be all like, so what's going on in your world? And the minute they left, I would physically, and I would just curl up in a ball sometimes and sob and sob and sob. And my poor partner, and of course this was when my kids weren't around. I've also got an older daughter who was doing her uni, and she was stressed about uni, and I couldn't show her how worried or stressed I was. I didn't want my son to see I was their rock. And so when I had these crumbling meltdowns, it was when no one was around to see me. My partner caught me a couple of times, and poor guy, he just didn't know what to do. He'd run away. But yeah, physically I had no energy, very easily irritated. Funny enough, I remember craving a lot of junk. And I was eating a lot of junk during this time because I had no motivation and energy, and I just stopped caring. I stopped, probably cooking as well as I'd normally do. I know when he was in hospital for a month, and because I was there till like midnight, 1:30 in the morning, I was too scared to leave him. I was calling into McDonald's pretty much every night on the way home and just having a small fries or, apple pie or, physically no motivation, no energy, irritated, craving junk.
Which is not that funny actually. Sometimes people are like, kind of like, it's usually like, I don't have motivation, but the physical side of things too is when you are in adrenal fatigue, you're constantly craving things to try and bring up cortisol. So it's almost like sugar and junk food will actually spike your blood sugar levels. And then it's almost like it tries to artificially increase cortisol as well in a healthy way.
That makes sense.
But then everything crashes, and then it's like, oh no, I need more.
And I swear I became addicted to potato crisps. I had this specific flavor, and I would eat the big full packets like 3 times a week, which of course, when you're unwell and you're not exercising, I've always considered myself, I've always been quite active. I've considered myself quite healthy, and because I put on weight, I remember looking in the mirror and feeling like I didn't recognize a person looking back at me. I remember I felt like I'd aged physically in the face by about 10 years.
Yeah, wow. Yeah.
And I did have a couple of clients at the time say to me, "Are you okay?" And if they said that, I'd cry.
So we, like in functional medicine, we always want to get to the root cause of why the body systems burn out in the first place. So you mentioned stress. With more hindsight and wisdom, do you was it just stress, or had you kind of like in the process or after you healed, you're like, why did I lose? Why did I lose the plot? Because I could see other mothers with extraordinary journeys with their children's health issues, but they don't end up there. Like, have you ever kind of unpacked that for yourself around what happened?
Yeah, it was definitely mostly stress related, and I think it was ego related as well, because I wanted to be everyone's rock. I wanted to hold it together for my son while he healed. I didn't want to add stress to him. My daughter was doing stressful uni because she was wanting to be a physio. I didn't want to, I didn't want them to see that I was not okay, I suppose. So that contributed as well. So I'd say it was definitely stress, which led to the poor nutrition. And we know the gut brain connection, or most of us do. So I think it was mostly stress, definitely, and stress because I didn't look after myself. I didn't prioritize self-care.
Yeah, and I think you hit the nail on the head too, where you said it was ego driven as well, because it's more around like our response to stress. And so if we have this identity or this belief about ourselves that we need to be the one that everyone turns to. It was interesting what you said, way like when you first started that story, all mothers put their kids first. And, I think you said we fill up their cup first before. I'm like, well, not all mothers.
Yes.
So there's a certain pattern trait that it's just like, when big things happen, more susceptibility to lead to burnout. So son got better.
Yeah.
You got out of that like constant vigilant, he's going to die type
Yeah.
brain loop happening. What else? Was
Yeah.
it just he got better and then you healed, or did you actively have to do things as well to heal from adrenal fatigue? And
Yeah, I actively had to do things.
Yeah.
First off, a naturopath recommended some. So I was spending all this money on water kefir and probiotics and prebiotics, because I was told he had no immunity.
Yeah.
There was one thing I learned about going through the system the way we did was there's such a huge lack of communication and knowledge and information for us. And then I mentioned it one day very proudly to the head of infectious disease, and she's like, "You're wasting your money because he's taking antibiotics, 500 milligrams at 8 o'clock, 1 o'clock, 6 o'clock, and 10 o'clock. They're getting killed off in his body. So they're not really surviving long enough to do anything." And I was like,
Yeah.
oh. So long story short, I was recommended some whole food powders, the Juice Plus whole food powders. And I looked into those, and I started because of what he was going through, he wasn't really feeling like eating, but I knew the gut-brain connection. I knew the importance of nutrition for him, and it was really hard because he wasn't really eating that well. And so I got onto these, which basically, because they're food grade, they're a nutraceutical, they enter the bloodstream and they start working quickly. And we noticed a difference within 3 weeks of him on them.
Yeah. Wow.
Like I was blown away, and he just kept getting better and better. And I guess it's because even though he was on all those strong antibiotics, he had that nutrition.
Yeah.
So my first step to recovering was I saw what they were doing for him, and I went, well, I'm going to start taking these.
Yeah.
And so I started taking those, which I started to feel a little better. And then it was actually a really good close girlfriend of mine that did massage at the time. And I won't give her a plug because she doesn't do it anymore. But we were actually, I did a bit of musical theatre, and we were actually rehearsing. We were in the middle of rehearsing for a show that I was in with her at the time when my son got sick. And when this happened, I actually pulled out for a bit because of the stress. But then my son got so stressed that he blamed himself that I dropped out of the show, something I love doing. And it started to stress him that I'd be in hospital visiting him, and he'd be like, "Aren't you supposed to be at rehearsals? Aren't you supposed to be at rehearsals?" And I would have to pretend to go to rehearsals so he didn't stress. And I would pull up outside the rehearsal room and I couldn't go in. I'd just sit there and cry.
Yeah.
And one night I went in and I just burst into tears. I couldn't do it. I couldn't remember anything. I had brain fog. I felt like I was going crazy. And I ran out crying, and my girlfriend came out after me and she said, "I'm really worried about you." She said, "I want you to come for a massage. What are you doing Monday afternoon?" I put her off because in my egotistical mind and not fully understanding what that massage would do for me, I said to myself, like, how can I lay there and relax and enjoy a massage when my son's in hospital so sick? Like, how can I do that? It's like it was quite bizarre, and clearly I wasn't thinking straight at the time. And she just persisted. She persisted with me over a couple of weeks, and it got to the point where I completely broke down in her presence. And she basically said, "You're coming Monday at 4:30." And she gave me an hour and a half massage. And I kid you not, she had to put a face towel under the hole because I sobbed so much and snotted the whole hour and a half. And it's like, she did say to me, "You store stress in your body.
Yeah.
So this is probably going to release that stress and let it out."
Yeah.
And that was my first step into healing. Second step after the whole foods. Little did I know that at the time. And I just remember feeling the next day, feeling a little normal again. And I had forgotten what it felt like. And until she gave me that gift, I'm going to get a bit teary.
Oh.
Until she gave me that gift, I guess, it made me realise that, I guess how sick I was. And it just made me more determined to keep feeling that way and get better. And so I started going to her weekly. And I found that that feeling lasted a few days. And then the more I went, the longer that feeling lasted. So that was my journey to healing. And then from there, another girlfriend who lived a couple of doors around, who was a nurse, she was quite worried about me and Bailey. And she said to me, "You're coming to yoga." There's a beautiful yoga teacher in my local community who's now a close friend of mine. And she just basically said, "You're coming with me." And I cancelled the first time because in my head, I'm unwell, I've got no energy, I'm not flexible, I'm not fit, how embarrassing. And then, all the excuses and ego. And she told me how amazing it was. She had really, really bad insomnia. And she said she slept that night. And so the following week I went with her. And boom, that was my healing journey started. Starting to feel the benefits of looking after myself and nourishing myself.
So cool. I love it. Like it sounds like for you a holistic approach. It wasn't just like one thing that was the magic pill. It was finding a bunch of things, and even like your tribe and stuff as well.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. And that set me on my path of also for my son. I was so petrified of all the drugs that he had a PICC line in when he was in hospital. And I was paranoid about the long-term effects of that, and so I started to go, right, well, I need to keep looking after him while he's at home and in my care and I'm feeding him. And I signed up to IIN for the health coaching accreditation. And at the time it was for me as well. It was for all of us. And that's where my holistic journey started.
Yeah, cool.
And I learned all about the gut-brain connection and
Awesome. I wanted to dig into that. So you have accredited in many modalities, as our listeners would have heard when I was reading out your bio. But I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but one of your big passions around what you do is the power of breath and teaching people how to become their own self-healers, self-regulators. Yeah.
Absolutely, yes.
So why do you love breathwork so much?
Oh my gosh, because it's something we do every day anyway. It's free, it's easy, and it has an instant physiological effect on our body. And so most people aren't aware of the impact that breathing incorrectly, has on our body. And so we're doing it anyway. It's for free. So why not learn how to do it properly, for short-term benefits and long-term gains?
Yeah. How does it, well, especially for our listeners, like have an understanding, although I love to have experts in their industry come on too, because I'm like, whoa, I didn't know that. I didn't know it to that depth. But so you're big on stress management. So how does breath work help with stress management and then also like emotional regulation as well?
Well, I think emotionally, first of all, it changes our focus. So especially for people who are anxious and with anxiety, we tend to be overthinking stuff too far ahead in the future that, most likely won't happen, or we're constantly circling about worst case scenarios and everything that can go wrong. And so with anxiety in particular, it's a change of focus, and we only have one focus. So emotionally, that's great, and it grounds us, which is another, there's great grounding techniques. But physiologically, the impact on our central nervous system. And, for those that don't know that are listening, the central nervous system, regulates, it our body, and there's two arms off that, our SNS, our sympathetic nervous system, and our PNS, our parasympathetic nervous system. And I call the PNS the green zone, like the good zone where we want to be most of the time. And then we have our sympathetic, which is our fight, flight, freeze. So, and our parasympathetic is our rest and digest. And so the impact breath has on flipping our central nervous system into our PNS zone when we need it and instantly is phenomenal, and it regulates our heartbeat. It regulates our blood pressure. When I did my training with a Brazilian guy, he talked about some research that had been done. Can't remember off the top of my head who did it, but where a study was done, and when you know how to breathe properly, it was shown that regulated and the blood pressure quicker than a blood pressure tablet.
Wow, that's so
good. It's so good.
It's interesting. I actually went to my GP. I do see GPs when I need to. Oh. But we were just talking. There's like so many goobies going around, and I just had this cough that wasn't going away, and I had to go away interstate. And I'm like, just want to make sure that there's no infection. Anyway. Cool story. But she did test my blood pressure, and I was talking while she was doing it, and it was like quite high. She's like, hang on, just take a breath and don't talk. And so I just like relaxed, and it's like, magically my blood pressure was back to normal. But I found for me, when I started my own health journey, probably even before I got into functional medicine, it was more when I was like investigating food and toxins and all that sort of stuff. And then I came across the power of breath. I think it might have been Paul Chek. Maybe I watched a little YouTube video or something, and I was shocked that I couldn't breathe past my ribs. Like it was just like getting stuck in my chest.
Yeah.
And even doing the practice where, you put a hand on your chest, one on your belly, I could not get my belly to rise. It was insane. I did after a month of just like every day, every hour practicing, like getting right down into the diaphragm, belly breath. But do you see that often, like with people that you work with, especially people who are anxious, probably like overdoing?
Definitely. And I had it recently. I've been doing a bit of work with college students, and I've created a little program for exam prep to help the students, just give them some coping tools, stress management tools. I'm a mindfulness practitioner as well, so some mindset, confidence stuff, and some tips about staying off their gadgets and EMFs and sleep and things like that. And there was a student that struggled with, she felt worse afterwards, not better. And and the thing is too, I find people who are maybe a little bit anxious, I mean, I don't know much about this student, but people who feel a little bit anxious, or I find if you're a perfectionist as well, sometimes and I guess too, in that situation, I only have a short time with them. So ideally, when I'm teaching these tools, it's nice to have time to practice it a few times and get into a rhythm. And so this was quite a short time frame to give a lot of tools to them. And so I think maybe sometimes we can get caught up in our own head. We're such creatures of habit. And, for years we've been breathing a certain way, which is mostly shallow breathing. And all of a sudden you're a perfectionist, you might be an overthinker, and someone's telling you to breathe differently. And you can get a little bit caught up in your head about your thoughts can race away from you. And instead of actually being present in that moment and focusing on what your body's doing and the breath, you get all in your head and go, am I going too fast? Am I going too slow? Am I doing this right? Oh, is my body going out or in? Or blah, 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 blah. And if they get too caught up in their head without that awareness, they just automatically go, no, I can't do that.
Yeah.
That doesn't work for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's so interesting.
And
So
it is.
interesting.
It's like it's a muscle that needs practicing. I say to people, you know, if you wanted to build your biceps, you don't go to the gym and do a few reps and go, oh, that didn't work.
Mhm.
It
Yeah.
takes consistency and practice. And when I talk to the students, I say to them, you know, when you were a little child and you were learning to walk, you didn't fall over and go, I can't walk, and give up on it. When you're learning to ride a bike, you don't have your crashes and go, well, I can't do that. You keep going until you can. And same with when you learn to drive a car, you bunny hop, you stall, you grind gears, or back in my day it was manual. I think they're automatic now, but and you don't go, I can't drive. You stick at it until you can.
Yeah.
And for some, I won't say for everyone, some people really embrace breath work and love it and dive right in. But yeah, for some, depending what's going on for you, you can struggle, and it might not be easy for you at first. But with those people, I do say, don't give up, keep practicing. And there are so many different techniques out there, and maybe not every technique's going to be for everyone. It's just finding what works for you, I think.
Yeah. Although I pushed through it, so it probably wasn't the thing that stopped me from being able to breathe deeply, because I was able to retrain, but something I find impacts people are hiatal hernias. So if the stomach's kind of like, stuck up into the esophagus, pushing up into the lungs and the heart, and often there's
that
like
would make
tearing the
sense.
diaphragm wall.
Yes.
It's almost, I mean, it's not impossible to do that like nice functional breath, but it is not functional. The stomach being there, and so it can impact things.
And one thing I did learn too, you know, a lot of people say, take a deep breath. And sometimes taking a deep breath can be negative for somebody, especially if they're used to shallow breathing or they've got restrictions. And so they may not need to take a deep breath. They may just need to slow it down.
Yeah.
And sometimes just slowing it down and focusing and being present is enough. It doesn't necessarily have to be deep. You know, and sometimes that's a good start to breath work, and just slowly working your way in. We're all different.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Before we hit record, I said, oh, Chris would have loved to be on the interview today, but he's not feeling well. And I said to Mon, oh yeah, he's the one who, like, he's daily breath work and he's really like consistent in that. But then as you were just saying that, I'm like, I do breath work every day too. I just do it more usually if I'm doing kind of like reprogramming belief work or visualization or listening to a hypnosis. My breath will just naturally fall into that rhythm without me holding my breath for 4 minutes, for 4 seconds, and you know.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. And I think when you're quite holistic, I think it does become a bit of a habit and a programming where we're probably doing it a lot and don't realize it anyway.
Yeah.
I know myself, it's so habitual for me now. And I do it so often now. And I know this because I no longer am super irritable. I'm no longer super reactive, like, you know, compared to how I used to be. I'm so chill. And, you know, I take little moments throughout the day. So if I'm driving out and about and I hit a red light, I'm like, instead of going, oh, bloody red light, why me? I've got to get somewhere. It's like bonus. I get to do some breath work.
Yeah.
And so every time I hit a red light, and if I am made to wait for an appointment, instead of getting all worked up and angry about wasting my time, I don't waste my time. It's like bonus. I do my breath work.
Yeah. I love it.
Yeah. Supermarket aisle. I stand there and do my breath work.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so awesome. It's so awesome. So it's super easy just to implement it into your daily life.
There are certain techniques, where people don't even know you're doing it.
Yeah. So definitely helps with things like anxiety and overwhelm and irritability. And if you're in that fast-paced go mode, fight, flight response, have you noticed any physical symptom improvements or reduction with like clients that you've worked with breath work? I'm curious.
Yes. I've had people report on improved sleep,
Yeah.
less irritability, great for asthmatics. It's helped a lot of asthmatics. I've even had young girls say that it's been able to prevent anxiety attacks. That's with other work as well, but based around some breath work, emotional freedom tapping, mindset stuff. But I had one client recently that attended one of my workshops, and she jumped in my inbox a couple of days later and said, "I freaking love you." And one of the techniques, she's been seeing a psychologist, and one of the techniques I taught her, she was coming into my session, she was having mass panic attacks.
Yeah.
And when I open up a session, I let people know that some stuff can come up for them. Depending what's going on for them, and I give them full permission that it's a safe space, and if they feel they need to cry, they cry. I don't want to scare anyone off because it doesn't always happen, but I feel it's important to have awareness, and if they are going through a bit and get a bit teary, that it's not right or wrong. Like, it's just as is, release it. And as soon as I said that, she broke down in this room, and I thought, but she stuck it out. She stuck the whole session out. She did the work, and she said to me, one of the techniques in particular, she said, has been able to stop my anxiety attacks. So she now has awareness in her body of it coming on, and she removes herself, and she does this particular technique that works for her, and it actually prevents these anxiety attacks from going full blown.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
That was pretty awesome.
It was quite a few years ago, but I did a Wim Hof workshop, which included, most of it was breath work and then the ice plunge.
Yes.
But the breath work, I remember at the time I had severe back pain, sciatica pain, and I remember during the breath work session, what was the sensation? I think it was just like warmth, energy, light radiating in the spot of my back that was really sore. And then after that, back pain disappeared.
Wow.
It was
how amazing is
amazing.
That?
So cool.
Oh my gosh. Well, breathwork's been proven to boost our immunity as well. Helps with focus, helps with clarity. There are so many benefits to breathwork. And one thing that I found interesting when I did my training was that he taught us noses are for breathing, mouths are for eating. And there's so many different modalities out there, and there are, like Wim Hof and all of that, and they all serve a purpose. But inhaling through our mouth for long periods of time is actually really bad for our health. And you'll find snorers tend to mouth breathe. And long term, that's not great for us. Short term, it serves a purpose for different things. And so young children who mouth breathe consistently, it affects the development of their palate and jaw.
Yeah.
So that's really interesting. Yeah.
So crazy. I forgot to ask you before we hit record, although I did kind of like send you some dot points and stuff. But are you happy to do a 5-minute breath work?
Oh, absolutely. What's the point in talking about breath work if we don't do a little exercise?
Because this is so good. Like, people listening, again, like as you said, it's just so easy to incorporate. So
yes,
maybe don't do it while you're driving. If someone's listening to it, or it's okay.
Yeah, well, yes, there's different techniques. I mean, I do regular breath work when I'm driving, but I'm experienced, and it's not an extreme one that makes you lightheaded or dizzy, or I don't need too much focus. So I do there's a couple, a real easy favorite one of mine, balanced breathing. It's just where you're slowing down your inhale through your nose for a count of 4, and then you're exhaling for a count of 4. And so that's safe to do. And I do that when I'm driving. I'm doing that all the time. Sometimes when you've been talking on this podcast, I'm sitting and doing it so I don't get nervous and stay calm. But yes, I think one that I will share with the audience, which is a good introduction and it's not too stressful and they can't get too caught up in their head about it, is just having that awareness of connecting breath to body and just slowing it down. And so what we do is we just get comfortable.
I'm just going to mute. I'm going to mute my microphone so that if I'm like,
okay,
then you're not hearing me, you're just hearing you.
Okay. So we get comfortable, whatever that is for you. And what I would love you to do is soften down the shoulders. When we're stressed, our shoulders tend to be up near our ears. So soften the shoulders and relax the jaw. We clench the jaw when we're stressed. Soften those shoulders, relax the jaw. And I'd love you to close down your eyes and just connect to your body. And by closing down your eyes, you're just getting rid of other distractions. And then I want you to take a moment just to pay attention to your body. How are you feeling? Is your posture nice and straight? Our body's always trying to tell us something if we stop and pay attention to it. And then what I'd love you to do is just take a nice, slow inhale through your nose, and then we're going to exhale through your nose. And it's just going to be slower than what you usually do. It doesn't have to be deep. And I'm going to count because a lot of people will say, I don't know how slow to go. So I'll count as a guide. So inhale, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 3, 2, 1. Inhale, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 3, 2, 1. And it's just slowing it down to what you'd normally do. And then for the little exercise, we're going to keep doing that. And we're just going to do a set of 3. So inhaling, that's 1. And then just let the exhale be. If it's comfortable for you to go deeper, please do. And on your next exhale, that's 2. And just let the exhale be. Staying connected to the body. And then your next inhale is 3. And just let the exhale be. And if you lose count, that's okay. Just start from 1 again. And if your thoughts start racing, just come back to the breath. What does it feel like in your body? When you breathe in through your nose, is it warm or is it cold? When you breathe in, your chest rises. When you exhale, your stomach shrinks. And that's just a lovely little simple exercise where you can actually just connect to breath and body, ground yourself and just be, and just learn to slow your breath down. So that's usually an intro breath that I start most of my work with.
Thank you.
Oh, well.
I feel it's crazy how quickly it can change your state.
It is.
Like within seconds.
It is, yeah. That's usually how I introduce breathing. It's just really simple and it's just about connecting and just practicing, because most of us breathe in and out, in and out, in and out, too fast and too shallow. And so that little exercise can just get you connecting. Most of us don't connect to our body. We're just go, 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 hustle, 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 and we just unconsciously live our lives, and we can get into that existing rather than living. And so this just brings us back to the present moment, I think, as well.
Yeah. Now that might be the answer to the next question, but if you have anything else that you want to throw out. So most of our listeners are busy, burnout, experiencing energy, mood and gut issues. What advice or tips would you give someone who is feeling like this, and like just easy first steps to help someone become more regulated?
Oh, I could talk about this forever. So easy first steps. The easy first steps would be to start taking moments throughout your day to just stop and breathe. And it doesn't have to be a technique or a counting or a box breathing or a rapid breath. Just take moments to stop and focus on slowing it down. So that's one easy step. Another is get into nature daily, even if it's just 5 minutes in your backyard or out on your deck in the mornings. Win the morning, win the day, I say. Too many people get up, turn the TV on, turn the radio on, read the paper, and they're just absorbing all this white noise straight off the bat. And something stresses them out, or someone upsets them on Instagram, or they got a bill, or so. To me, a simple thing, I guess in a nutshell, it's nourish you, start nourishing you. I always start my mornings in nature. In winter, I'll have a coffee in the morning. I'm a big smoothie girl. I will go outside, even if it's cold. I will put a coat on and just stand outside, if it's only for 5 minutes, and just listen. If the sun's out, I'll close down my eyes and feel it on my face, and just listen to what's going on around you, the birds, the dogs, the neighbours. And what's 5 minutes out of your day to nourish you? Sunlight on your skin if you can. People who work in the office, if you can get outside on your lunch break and roll up your sleeves or get your legs exposed to some sunlight. Movement. When we move our bodies, we feel better. But it's prioritizing nourishing yourself daily, I think, in a way that works for you. And it doesn't have to be gym classes or costing money, just some sort of self-care. I get clients to write a joy list and write all the things that bring them joy. And I'm like, do something off that joy list every day. And It just might be playing with your puppy for 5 minutes. But I think prioritizing nourishing you, self-care, diet and nutrition for the gut-brain connection, being really conscious of what you eat, sleep, eliminating stress, and getting support where needed, like yourselves, like Chris and Philly. Obviously, obviously, taking control and looking after self. But sometimes that's a great first step, and it's easy. But sometimes we need support, and we don't reach out for it. So getting preferably functional support, where someone will actually look at you as a whole and get to the root cause. And that's why I'm such huge fans of you guys, because you don't just mask the symptoms or tell people, oh, you just have to live with it. I think getting good functional support is definitely one of those steps.
Yeah. I find too, like I'm just reflecting back on your journey and your story of burnout and how you had the massage therapist kind of like come into your world.
Yes.
And I imagine, correct me if I'm wrong, but I imagine you probably weren't doing the things that you just mentioned there back
Oh,
when you were like, you wouldn't have been out in the
no,
morning in the cold with your
no,
rug, sipping on your
no,
coffee in the sunshine?
no, none. I had no self-care.
Yeah.
I didn't care, and I didn't realize I didn't care. I was an absolute zombie who was just existing in this world for not pleasing others. Yes, but obviously, as my son's mum, he was my priority, and I put him before me in that situation. But there is a balance. You can do that. And I just neglected myself.
Yeah.
And I got very caught up in the stress.
Yeah. Yeah.
Of it all.
Yeah. And when someone is in that like deep burnout zombie mode, it's really hard. Like most people know to get sunshine and eat well and move your body. But sometimes, often you need a bit of a guide, I guess, like a guide to come into your world to say, not even to give you permission, but teach you how to give permission to yourself.
Yes.
To care for yourself.
Yes.
And that's often the blocker for people is that, I know all the things, but why can't I do it? It's permission.
Yeah, I was doing the complete opposite of all the things without even a second thought for my well-being. And my only focus was my son's well-being and getting him better. I didn't even realize I was neglecting myself. And my friend, I guess, forced me to stop and do something for me. And the next day, that I will never forget that feeling. I remember driving somewhere and I thought, oh my goodness, I feel happy. I had forgotten what happy felt like. Yeah. And then it was like, I want more of this. And that's why I started going to her weekly. And not only that, she was a sounding board because we were friends. I was able to vent to her, so she was like a free counsellor. I mean, I was having counselling support from the hospital as well. But yeah.
So awesome. Well, I'm so glad. I think especially all the people in your world who have been working with you and worked with you in the past that I always say my mess is my message. And so although we have to go through hard stuff, you can come out of it with so much more wisdom and growth and just the impact you can then have is like a beautiful ripple effect out into the world.
Absolutely. And just touching on that, a lot of us tend to wait until we're broken and then seek out to get fixed. I'm really, since my journey and studying health coaching and all the things, I'm really big on prevention over cure. Like, why wait till we need stuff? There are simple things we can do daily so that when we do encounter stress, we can manage it better. And if I had these tools before my son got sick, a lot of these tools, it could have helped in some of that prevention. And that's why I went on to be a kids yoga teacher. When I started yoga, I was like, why aren't kids taught this in school? Because breathwork is connected to yoga, obviously. And I went, I need to, if I knew this when I went through some stress when I was a child, and it's like, if I had these tools just to help me cope better.
Yeah, it's so cool. Well, if any of our listeners are interested in exploring breath work or anything else that you do, or we've been chatting about, how can they get in touch with you? What's the best way?
Okay, best way would be I have not long started a business page on Facebook and Instagram, which I'm going to get better at. I have a love-hate relationship with social media, but I realize it's important for business. So it's called Calm Minds and Healthy Bodies.
Awesome.
So often when I'm launching stuff or offering services, I will post on there with my phone number. So most people text me or shoot me a message through there.
Awesome. I'll make sure all that's in the show notes so that people can find you easily.
Thank you, lovely.
But thank you so much for coming on. It's been so good to chat.
Yes, I'm so excited to finally connect and like the work you guys do is phenomenal. And I think I actually found you because I have sick clients. I'm a server. I'm always trying to help people.
Yeah.
And I can't help everyone. And so I delegate. And so many people sit in my seat and they've been seeing doctors for years but not getting better. And I'm like, you need a functional practitioner.
Yeah.
You know how many people do not know what a functional practitioner is?
So many.
Yes. So
sometimes they just say, oh, it's kind of like a naturopath, nutritionist, but we're using like cool lab testing, and we also go through the root cause that other practitioners don't usually.
Yes. And so obviously I'm going to share this. So my community will be hearing it. And so I'm like, well, how can I serve you and Chris today? Like, I want you to have a bit of a shout out too.
Oh, thank you so much. Kindred spirits.
Yes. So awesome. Yes, I want my community that are listening to this to look you up and give you a follow on socials because you have amazing value.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for listening. We so appreciate you. If you'd like to give us extra smiles, drop us a review and spread the love by sharing this episode.
You can also rate your own state of burnout and the root cause contributors by taking our Ending Body Burnout assessment on our website. And if you're interested in learning about our group or one-on-one Ending Body Burnout programs, shoot us a DM via Instagram or Facebook. Have the best day ever.